All right, welcome back to Genius. So this is our day 8, okay? And in the previous class, in the day 7, we were supposed to also talk about the grid system, but because of the video was getting too lengthy, I have to drop it. But like I promised, it's going to be part of a bonus class. All right. So we have 10 days to study HTML and CSS. We have 20 days to study JavaScript. We have 10 days to study TypeScript. That is the way this 100 days was structured so that we can actually have all the courses we want to talk about. Yes, of course, we might not be elaborating too much on topics. That is why we gave you some books to read. And that is why you also have the platform to ask questions. All right. So, before we continue with this class, I want to show you something. At the end of this HTML and CSS class, we will be designing this landing page. Beautiful, right? So this is the what we'll be designing, and at the end of it, you'll be having it in your portfolio. So you can send it to people, your clients, showing them what you can design. All right. You can show them what you can design. So we'll be designing this thing. And as I'm designing it, I'll be teaching you, showing you what I did. All right. So we'll be designing this thing together. All right. So after the day 10, we'll now jump into this. So this is what we'll be designing. Very beautiful. So I'm going to show you, this is a Figma. This is Figma. All right. So we'll be using this Figma design to actually work on, to develop this with only CSS and HTML. No extra tool, no extra style, no extra framework. Just only CSS and HTML. Okay. All right. We'll be designing something like this. Okay. That's what we'll be designing. Okay. So get ready, guys. Get ready. Get ready. Get ready. Get ready. Okay. All right. So I believe this is an image. Okay, this is not an image. It's okay. All right, so let's go back to our class. All right. So responsive web design. How do you make your website very responsive? Okay, that's what we'll be talking about. So you are to read chapter 17 of the Robbins HTML and CSS. We'll be talking about fluid layout, fluid grid layout. We're talking about the flexible images and media. We'll talk about CSS media query. We'll talk about mobile first approach. We'll talk about viewports, meta tag, and we'll talk about responsive typography. And your assignment will be to create a simple mobile first responsive layout. Then use the min width and the max width to style text sizes. All right. So let's jump into it. Fluid grid layout. We talked about uh, how you can actually use the Flexbox to actually make your applications responsive too. But in this fluid grid layout, we are talking about it's a web design technique where the layout of a web page uses percentages instead of fixed units. When you say you want to say the width of an element is 20 pixel or the margin is 20 pixel, stop using fixed units. All right, don't use fixed units to size your elements. Stop using fixed units. Use percentages, use EM, use REM, all right, use view H, view W, or we'll be talking about that later. Okay, so now I'm going to show you an example of this. So it is one of the core principles of responsive web design. Okay, so it allows your layout to adapt and scale smoothly to different screen sizes. So when you use percentages or when you use EM or RM, we'll talk about units later on in this class. So it will make your application to respond to any size at all, desktop, tablet, mobile, without breaking. So unlike fixed grids, which remain the same size no matter the screen, fluid grids scale proportionally. Okay, before we go into that, let me just show you. This is going to be a lengthy video as well. Now let's say okay, now look at okay, this ID logo, all right. I'm going to go to the CSS, all right. The ID logo, I'm going to say that I will say that font size, the font size is, let's say 100 pixel. All right. If I say the font size is 100 pixel, we go back, let's run it. If we try to resize our browser, oh, I think this is, I don't even know where I have that. Okay. Now, you can see how big it is. This is 100 pixel. So if I try to resize it, guess what? It's still the same size. You see, it's not responsive. It is the same size. Can you imagine? It's just the same size. But if I try, okay, if I try to say, instead of using 100 pixel, if I try to say, okay, let me use something like EM, 100 EM, all right? Look at the difference. I'll save, I'll go back to the browser. We'll talk about these units later on, but let me just show you. Oops. Is okay. 100 EM is too much, please. Let me say I'm going to go for 2 EM. 100 EM is okay. I'm going to explain this EM to you. I'm using EM here. So if I resize, of course, it's not changing. All right. So that is why you should use percentage. So if I say the font size should be, I want to use 2%, I will say 2%. Now, this 2% is the 2% of the container, the 2% of the width of the container. And since we'll take a look at it now and look at it, the font size is smaller here. So as we increase, okay, and okay, it's not. Uh, Okay, so this will not really work with font size. Let me go with the width. Sorry, guys, let me go with the width. We'll talk about this font size typography later on. Let me go with the width. And I will say this is going to be the, and moreover, this is inside a container. It is inside a container that does not have any width. So that could be the problem. So I'll have to give my container width. All right, let me give it the width, or I'm giving the width of 800. Okay. I could just give this container the width of 50 pixel, 50%. We can even start with this one. Let's start with this container. Remember that the container is the one that is in blue color. So I said that the width of this container is 50%. So if I go now, I think this will be a perfect example. You can see this container is 50%, the width. So as I look at it, it is changing. The size is changing. Do you understand? So it is fluid now. All right. All right, it is fluid now because it is 50% of the viewport of the browser width. So if I go down, you see, as the browser is shrinking, it is shrinking as the browser, you can see, okay, you can see. All right. So if I now go back and say that I want the width of the logo to be, let's say, 20%. All right. As the width of the container is also increasing or is growing or shrinking, this one would also grow. Look at, so let's take a look. So I would resize the browser. You can see that it is shrinking now. Do you understand? You can see it is 20% of the width of the container. And you can see, so whenever you want to do this, make sure that, because this percentage is actually 20% of the container. So this logo is actually inside of this container. That is why it is taking 20% of this width. And this 50% is actually the HTML, which is the container, the viewport. All right. So why fluid grids? It works across all screen sizes. You can see as I was changing the viewport, the width of the browser, it was actually the size was being adjusted. It eliminates horizontal scrolling, makes designs flexible and future-proof, and better user experience. You can see as I was okay, let me show you something. All right. So there's something we call, if you go to inspect, you click on this toggle device toolbar. So it is now on mobile. Now it is now on mobile devices. So look at it now. Look at it. So this is on a mobile device now. So if I say 100%, let me go back. So if I say 100%, okay, I could just say, okay, the width of this guy is um, on 20, okay. Let me just say 100%. Okay, or let me say 70 or 80%. Okay, and I would have loved to center it. I would have loved to center it, but that's not the essence of this video, of this class. So you can see, watch the size now, watch the size. As soon as I change, you can see the size has increased, the width of it has increased. So it is increased in base. So these are different device widths, okay, different device sizes. All right, so it is changing according to, so that is this is how we do responsive design too. All right. So we'll just now fluid grid layers use relative units, percentages, EM, ROEM, view WVH for sizing. So you can see that we use percentages. So we'll also show you how to use font size. So if I go on now to say that this logo, that the font size is, if I say it is 2 EM, or let me make it obvious, let's say 10 EM. I don't know if it will be too big. Okay, now we'll go by the, now I say the font size of this logo is 10 EM. So of course it's going to be big. All right, it's big now. It's big. So, but if as soon as I change, you can see now, this is not the best example. Okay. 10 is too much. 10 is actually too much. This is not the best example. So let me say like, um, let me say 2 EM. So this EM is that one, now I will talk about it later on. I will explain what this EM mean later on. So you can see the size. So as we look at the font size, as we increase, all right, as we increase, there's no difference actually here. So there's not much difference. So the font size here might not, when we talk about typography, we'll give a very good example of this. So relative units, use this for sizing. Percentage is for width and height, you see. EM and REM is for font sizing and spacing. So if you want to work with font size, if you're giving font size or spacing, please use EM or ROEM. All right. If you want to use width and height, use percentages. If you want to, you can also use view H and view W and view H for viewport relative sizing. So if I want to size this container, I could say instead of 80%, I could say the width is view width, view W, that's view width, viewport width. So it would be 80% of the width of this viewport. So this is the viewport. We'll talk about viewport later on. Okay? All right. So these are the common for fluid and adaptive grid. When you use fixed grid, this is Pixels is for fixed grid. Don't use it. Fluid grid is better. All right. So for fixed grid, it is not doesn't resize. It's bad. It's bad. So, but you see this fluid grid is perfect. It resizes. The units are this, and it is very flexible. So make sure you use all this. This is your font sizes should be using EM, REM. Your width should be using either percentage of the container, or if it is related to the viewport, it should be using VH or VW. All right. So for flexible images, all right, flexible images and media are visual elements that resize proportionally to fit within the parent container. Basically, not to speak too much English here, when you have an image, make sure that your image is inside of a container. Always have your images inside of a container. And when it is inside of a container, you make sure that the maximum weight of the image. Now look at this container. Now we are saying that this container is 50%. All right. And the your image should always be 100. They always use this rule on your images. The maximum weight of your images should be 100% of their containers, and make sure that you're using containers to structure your image. The height should be auto so that you can maintain the aspect ratio of the image. I don't want to talk too much about it. You can read it up in the book, but make sure that your images are always in containers. I don't have an image example here. I don't know. Okay, I think I have an image. Okay, so let's do an example here. I have an image. Do I? Yes, I have an image. So let's assume that I'm going to put an image here. Let's assume that I'm going to put an image here. So if you want to put an image, always have a container for your image. Always. Always have a container for your image. Then your image should be set to maximum width of, so I will say source is equal to flyer, right? Flyer.jpg. And then, of course, the auth, always remember to use the auth test. It should be, I'll just say image, okay? Now, let's go and style. I'm going to give this guy a class, or maybe an ID. I can just give it an ID of image container, okay? All right, so let's go and style. I'll go to my CSS, and then I might just remove these guys. Yes, let me just remove these guys. All right, so I have an ID. I have an ID called image container. And then I am going to say that this container is going to have a width of 50%. So I want it to be 50% of its container. So this 50% is relative to the its container, which is the body, all right, or the HTML, the body. So it's going to be 50% of the browser width because it's actually inside the body. Then I now have an image. Then I will need to say this image, all right, the maximum width should be 100%. When you say maximum width is 100%, it means that the image cannot grow. Now, the image cannot grow beyond 100% of its container. It cannot grow beyond its container. It cannot, no, sorry about that. Max width of this image means that the image cannot grow more than 100% of its width. The image has a weight, so it cannot grow more than 100% of its weight, all right? But it can also not grow more than 100% of its container. So if the container is bigger than the width of the image will just retain its natural width. It will not scale, it will just be its own width. But if the container shrinks, the image would also scale down. And then when you say height to be auto, it will maintain the aspect ratio of it. So if we go to our browser now, I just wish I can talk about everything here, but I can't, guys, I can't. All right, now look at it. If I go on to change, you can see here now, it is amazing. If I go on to change to a bigger screen, you can see it's still amazing. You can see it's taking the 50% of this container. All right, it's taking 50%, 100% of the container. So if I bring it back to a smaller screen, it's amazing. All right, so this is how you should be using responsive images. So maybe I should just show you more here. So if I do this, you can see the image. All right, you can see the image. So if I shrink, look at it. It's making sense. It's responding. Look at it. So if I go on now and say, I make this guy instead of 50%, let me make it 20%. All right. It will be 20% of the viewport. You can see, very smart. So as we go on to look at it, it's very responsive. So make sure that your images have inside of a container and they should be masked with 100% and height of auto. All right, max width 100%, the image can't grow larger than its container. It means that the image cannot grow larger than its container. And if the container is bigger than the size of the image will not, okay, let's go and let me show you something. So let me make, instead of 20%, let me make this guy 100. Sorry. Now let's see. I don't think that this image is up to 100, is that big to, okay. Okay, it still is that big anyway. So you can see it fits in. It fits in. So depending on the container, it just fits in and it doesn't shrink. All right. So this is just perfect. Okay. So the height auto preserve the aspect ratio. The aspect ratio is actually the width over height. So, and that is why you say it is not, it's just perfect. There are so many things you should read, all right? There are so many things you should read about this, read images. There are just so many things, but we cannot cover everything here, all right? Responsive video should also be embedded. Responsive videos and iframe should also be embedded inside of a container. They should be embedded inside of a container too. The container should be relative, positioned relative, and then the video itself or the iframe should be position absolute, top zero, left zero. I don't want to go into details of this. Just make sure that whenever you're having videos in your website, all right, make sure that it has a container. And that container should be positioned relative. And then the video itself should be positioned absolute, top zero, left zero. All right. And then width should be 100% of its container. Height 100%. Okay. So let's go to media query. Media query is actually the biggest way of doing this. A media query in CSS feature is a CSS feature that allows you to apply different styles based on the media features. We have different types of media. We can be looking at screen, we have different types of media. We have print, we have TV, we have so many. We'll take a look at them. Now, with the media query, you can apply different styles based on the different features of these devices. So they are the foundation of responsive design, making website look good on mobile, tablet, laptop, blah, blah, blah. All right. So the basic syntax is this. You say at media query, at media, sorry, not at media, you put the media type. The media type can be screen, it can be print, it can be anything. So the media type and the feature in bracket like this. So let's go and see. This is an example. So we are saying that the body should be light blue, but this is the default design, the default style. So normally, all right, the body should be light blue. But when we are mostly as a web developer, you'll be designing for screens. So we have different types of media, okay, but basically we'll be designing for screens. And in this media query, we are saying that when the media type is screen and when the feature of this screen is maximum width means that this maximum width is 768. It means that this style that we have here should apply to 768, any screen that has a width of 768 and less. It should not be more than, if you have a width that is more than 768, this style will not apply to it. Do you understand? So this style will apply to the screen type, and the feature here is max width. The max width, it means that we cannot go more than, okay, let me just show you with an example. All right, so I'm going to add media query here. And always make sure that your media queries are at the bottom. You can even skip the screen, the type, because by default it is screen when you're designing for web. So I can say screen, and the feature I want to take a look at is max width. So I'm going to do something here. I will have, let me just take a look at the syntax. Okay, max width this, okay. All right, I just wanted to take a look at the syntax. Okay, so max width like this. Then let's say the maximum width is, let's say 600. So it means that the style I'm going to have here, any style I put in here will not apply to when the width is more than 600 pixels. It will apply from screens that are less than 600 pixels. So I can just say the background, I can just say body. Okay, I will say the background color is going to be red. So you see, let's go and check out. This style will only apply for screens that are less than 600 pixels wide. So let's go and see. You can see it's not it doesn't it was not applied because the screen here is more than. So if I go if I inspect, so that I will go, let me go to you can see now the background color has changed. What is the width? The width is 375, and we said that the style that we had should be between 0 and 600 pixels. So if it is more than 600 pixels, this style will not apply. So if I go on now, if I go and check iPad mini, you can see the size is more than 600 and 600 pixels. That is why it did not apply. So I am conditionally applying styles based on the width, based on the media type, and based on some features. So I can say if I go back to this one is 414. So it fits in. This one is the same thing. 390 is within 600. This one is within 4112 is within 600. But once I go off, this one is also within 600. Once I go off, 768 is not within 600. You can say I've used the media query to apply. So basically, let's talk about only screen types. We don't need to talk about any other one, but we'll have different media types. But you can even skip this screen because by default, we are designing for the web and this is always screen. We are designing for screen. So this is not needed. So I would also take out this and I save. Let's see if it still works. Okay, I go down to this. It works. So you can see that I don't need to put the screen. All right, but you can also always add, by default it is screen. Whether you put it or not, by default it is screen. Okay, but if I change the media type, it will not show. So on screens wide or less. So this will apply to with the mass. I can if I say minimum width, if I say mean width, all right, it means that it will not apply to, it will only apply to devices or screens that are beyond 600. This now will, I have changed instead of max width, I have changed it to minimum width. So I say, please apply this style rule to a screen that is from 600 pixels and above. So if I go to the browser now, you can see the reverse is the case. You can see it's no longer here because 375 is less than 600. But if I go to something that is more than 600, it applies. Do you understand? All right. So these are the different types. If you want to apply to all the media types, you can say all, but you can go with screen. These are computer screen, tablet, and for this is the one we are designing for. Another one is print. That's for printers. Another one is speech. So, but we are more concentrated on screen, and you don't. That's the default. So we also have features like width, mean width, mass, height, orientation. So if I want to say, I want to check on orientation, I want to apply that style when the orientation is portrait. Of course, it is portrait right now. So I will say I want to apply this style only when I will remove this guy here. Okay, I will remove this mean width. The feature I'm targeting is portrait. Hope I get the spelling correctly. I don't know if this is correct. I'll say portrait. Sorry, orientation. Orientation. So in case you're targeting landscape up, in case you're target, sometimes users might be using landscape. So if they use landscape, you might add a different style to the web page. So let's say we want to apply this style to landscape. And if, of course, with what we have now, our browser is in the portrait position now. So this style will not apply. That style is applied to portrait, not is that style is applied to landscape. And our application, this browser is not in landscape position. So I don't know how to change. I have not done this before, changing to landscape. Aha, I have changed it to landscape now. You can see now it has applied. Okay, you can see I can rotate it. You see it is okay. You can see now this is how you change portrait and landscape. So you can see now this red background is only applying to landscape, but when it is portrait, it doesn't apply. All right. So we also have resolution. Okay, we also have hover. All right. So what are the common uses? Responsive breakpoints. So you can apply some styles based on the maximum weight or the minimum weight. If you want to target some screen, you want to apply a style to a particular screen that is to a particular size, you can use this. So max width, this thing means that any style that we apply here, it will apply from 0 pixel to 1200 pixel width devices. So if the width of the device is more than 1200, it will not apply. This one is maximum width of 992. So this any style you put in here will apply to 0 to 992. Anything above 992, it will not apply. 768, the same thing. And if you say it is mean width, it means that it will apply. If it is mean width, it means that it will apply from that particular size and above. All right, you can also combine them. Media query, and here we are combining mean width and orientation. So you can combine the features. You can combine the features. All right. So you can also target specific devices. You can just target based on devices. So if you say this one is targeting devices that are 375 pixel and the height is 677. Okay, so there are logical operators we can use to combine these media queries, all right, the features. So you can see that the AND operator, look at the one we had here before. We said here, we say media query, of course, the type is screen. And then we said width and. So this AND will work as a logical operator. That means all these things have to be true. It has to be, the media type has to be screen, the width has to be 375, and the height has to be 667. So they all have to be true. If any of them is false, this style will not be applied. So that is what that's what we have here. So here we are saying screen and mass width. That means both of them must be true. Here we are saying with the comma, we are saying it could be this or this. So this, whatever, if you have a media query like this, the styles will be applied to either screen or print. Do you understand? Remember, we these are the media types: the screen, the print, and media types. So this condition has to be true, and the comma is like the OR operator. The comma is like the OR operator. So it's either this or this. If any of them is true, all right, it would work. Then when you say not, so when you say not screen, that means whatever style you have in this media query it will not work, it will work for anything that is not screen. So any media type that is not screen, the style rule would apply to them. You can also do only. So it is only on screen and mass width. So only is that this has to apply to only this type. So these are the few logical operators you can use, but most often we don't actually use them. Okay? So now let's talk about mobile first approach. With the mobile first approach technique, you design for mobile applications first, mobile browsers first. That's basically what it is. So whenever you're designing any website or any web application, you should first of all design for mobile applications, because most of your users will be using their phones, their iPad to access your application. So you design for mobile applications first. So the mobile first approach is a design and development strategy where you start designing for the smallest screen sizes, which are mobile devices first. Then you can now progressively, all right, build for larger screens, tablets and desktop, but you will start with the smallest screen. Okay, so remember, after the first 10 days, we'll be designing a landing page. So I showed you guys the landing page earlier in this session. And then when we start building it, we'll build for mobile applications first. Then we'll now progressively add for other devices. So that is mobile first approach. This is a key concept in responsive web design because mobile devices are now the primary way people access the internet. So basically, your application will be accessed using mobile phones. So what are the key principles here? You start small, then you scale up. Start building for smaller devices, maybe 320 pixel width. Then you can start. You can now scale up. So you design for mobile devices first from 320 to 480 screen width. So you can now scale up. Then you now use media queries to adapt your layout for tablets and desktops. So basically, we'll be doing this more practical when we start building our landing page. And that will be the first big project we are going to do. So when you start small, then you progressively enhance the design. So you begin with the core functionality for mobile users, then you add more advanced features for larger screens. Okay. So you also use content first design. You prioritize your content that matters most to the users on mobile. So content first design is that the content of your website or your application has to be the content most users on mobile phones would have access to. That's content first design. So the content of your application should be the ones, the first content should be the ones that users on mobile phones will use. So it reduces cluster and focus on usability. So performance optimized, because the thing is this, when you design for, you see, if you design when users who are using mobile phones access a website that is designed for desktop, it will not be performance optimized because the images are designed for desktop, and you know now, desktop internet is faster than mobile devices. So when you optimize your performance, mobile first encourages lightweight pages because mobile networks may be slower. So when you first of all design for mobile applications, your images, you make sure that you optimize the application so that it will be very lightweight and it will not be too heavy because of downloads. All right. So this example of mobile first. So look at this design here. Here our first design here is for the body tag. And we say that the font size will be 16 pixel, the padding is 10 pixel, and the background is this. So this is the first design for the mobile screens. Then you can now use media query to now add. And remember, this media query, we are omitting the screen by default. The media type is screen. So the condition we are having here says minimum width. So whatever we are doing here now, it would be between 768 and above. All right. This other style will apply to screens that are 768 pixels and above. While the first one now is for mobile application, maybe from 320 to 767 or something like that. Okay. So you can see that this has a different, the padding here is 20 pixels and the font size is 18 because these other ones have a larger width. You can also do for larger screens for desktop 1024 pixel. And you can see that we are using media query to enhance, all right, the styles. So in this example, the base styles target mobile users first, all right? Then larger screens get enhanced styling using mean width media queries, okay? So another technique you can also use to create create responsive designs is using your viewport, the viewport meta tag. If you take a look at the viewport meta tag is a critical part of building responsive web pages, especially when using mobile first approach. It tells the browser how to control the page's dimension and scaling on different devices. Now look at it, without the meta tag viewport, the mobile browsers, all right, they would when they access a web page, they will create something we call viewport, and that viewport will be something like 960 pixel. So when they create that viewport, they will now adjust the viewport they will scale it down so that it can meet the screen size of that mobile device. But when you use meta tag, all right, when you use meta tag would actually tell the mobile browser to actually create a viewport that is the size of the device. So there will nothing like scaling down. So viewport is the visible area of a web page on a device screen. So when you open a browser, all right, whatever is visible in that browser is what we call the viewport. That is the viewport, what you can see. So on mobile devices, the viewport is smaller than on desktops. Okay, so by default, mobile browsers used to render web pages at desktop widths. So by default, if you don't include the meta tag, the viewport meta tag, the mobile browser would render the web page at the desktop width, something like 960 or thereabout, and then it will not scale it down. So this will cause tiny unreadable text and horizontal scrolling. So with the viewport meta tag, everything is fixed. So let's see how it was. So this is the normal meta tag we have in the head section, in the head element. So the name will be viewport. It says the content, all right, the width should be the device width. So the browser would use the device width, not the desktop width. If the width of the device is 320, or if the width of the device is 420, all right, the browser would create a viewport that is just the device width. And the initial scale is 1.0, so there will be no zooming. Do you understand? Okay. So definitely you must have this tag on all your web pages. So it means that with the width equals to device width, it will set the width of the viewport to the device screen width. So instead of the browser to create a viewport that is 960, 1024 width, it will create a viewport that is the size of the device screen width. And the initial scale equal to 1.0, it will set the initial zoom level when the page loads. So it will just zoom it 1%, as in 1 point, the ratio will be 1.0. Okay. Why is it important? Without the viewport meta tag, your site may look zoomed out on mobile. Users will need to pinch, they will need to pinch, zoom, and scroll horizontally. Media queries won't behave as expected. So, but with viewport meta tag, your page scales properly to fit any device. Your responsive design works as intended, and you have a better user experience. Okay. So we also talk about responsive typography. This is another technique. So these are the techniques you should be using to create a responsive web design. Responsive typography means your text automatically adjusts to look good on all screens. All right, all screens, the text of your content would adjust to look good on all screens. So in the mobile first approach, typography is optimized for small screens first. So your typography, the font size, the font, everything should be optimized for small screens first. Then you cannot enhance it for larger screens using media query. So why do you need responsive typography? Text on mobile screen should be large enough to read without zooming. So when you actually have a responsive typography, text on mobile screens should be large enough. And on desktops, text should not be too huge or too small. So this makes your design feel modern and flexible. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the techniques we use to create responsive typography. Always use relative units. Use EM, use rem, use percentage, viewport, view width, and VH and VW. Okay, so avoid fixed pixels. So one thing you should do is don't use pixel values. Just try as much as possible. Stop using pixel values anymore. So with the unit, if you use EM, is now the thing is the font size of by default the font size of elements is 16 pixel. So when you say EM, when you say I want the font size to be 2 EM, that means it's going to be 2 times 16. All right? It is going to be 2 times 16 pixel, which will be 32 pixel. So 1 EM is equal to 16 pixel. So, and this EM is relative to the parent element font size. REM, all right, rem is relative to the element HTML font size. All right, so percentage is relative to the parent's element font size. I think I have shown some of these things in the previous sessions where I was talking about this. So, but you're going to read more about this in the book. So, we also use the clamp function for responsive fonts. So, instead of me to say, look at it, there is this clamp. Okay, let me go and show you some example. Instead of me to say that the font size, what do I have here? What do I have here? Okay, so I can work with the logo, the ID logo. So instead of me to say that the font size, let me create an ID for logo. So instead of me to say that the font size is going to be something like maybe 10 pixel or whatever pixel, I can just say clamp. I will use the clamp function. The clamp function will take three parameters. The first parameter is the minimum size. So the minimum size, let's assume that the minimum this logo font size would be is, let's say 16 pixel, or I'm not going with pixel. I can go with 1 EM, all right? And then the second one is what should be the current font size. So I can say the current font size should be 2 EM. And I will say the last one is what is the maximum font size. I can say the maximum is 3 EM. So with this now, this whole thing is going to be responsive. Now look at it. When we render this page now, by default, it will take, this is the, it will render as a 2 EM font size. So, but if there is more space, maybe depending on the device, we can go for 3 EM. That's the maximum, all right? But the minimum is 1 EM. So if I save this, go to the browser, let's see this in action. Okay, my browser is open already. Okay. Okay, so I just go to the 7. Okay, so you can see the logo, you can see the size, okay? And so I would make it, oops, okay. What happened? Okay, so this is the smallest. So if I go to, maybe I go to this big one, okay. Let me remove this media query so that we'll have everything. So you can use this clamp, okay? The initial size of this element would be 2 EM, and it cannot go below 1 EM. So no matter how small the screen is, it will not go below 1 EM. And no matter how large the screen is, it cannot go beyond 3 EM. So that is how you can use the clamp function. Okay, so it will shrink on small screens, and when it shrinks on small screens, it will come down to, it will not go below the minimum value that you gave, but the first time it is rendered, it will go with the preferred value, which is, in our case, we said it is going to be 2M. And the maximum, it cannot, even on large screens, it grows, but it cannot grow more than the maximum size you gave it. So it stays within limit. So this is an example. So you can see this, the H1, all right? The preferred, whenever the page loads, it will be 5 VW. Okay, so this is relative to the viewport. So here we are saying it's going to be 5% of the viewport. All right. Then this is, it will be rendered as 5 VW. But if the screen is too small, it will not go less than 1.5 rem. Remember, this rem is relative to the font size of the HTML tag, and it will not go beyond 3 rem, okay? So it will take you some time to actually grasp this thing. That is why the books you can read to understand better, and when you practice them, you can actually, it will be something you do every time. Of course, you can also use Media Query to fine-tune font size. So we are saying the first font size is normal, is going to be 1 rem, but when the width is above 678, we are making it 1.2 rem. All right, welcome back to Genius. So in this class, this is our day 4, all right? Now let's talk about CSS. Let's introduce CSS and see what is actually it, and we'll be looking at some basic things about CSS. So we'll be reading the docket book chapter 10, 11, and 12. We'll also be reading chapter for Robbins. We also Hey guys, sorry about that. Sorry about that. Okay. All right. So when the minimum width is 1,200 pixels, we want to make the font size to be 1.5 rem. So you can also use the media query to fine tune your font sizes for breakpoint. So your typography should also be fluid. All right. So you can use the viewport. It will be 2% of the viewport. The font size of this HTML will be 2% of the viewport. Okay, so but be careful, text can get too small or too large on Airstream screens. So combine with clamp for safety. So using clamp is best for your something like font size. Using clamp function is best. Okay, so thank you very much, everybody. And I will see you in the next class. Do your test, do your assignment. If you have any question, please drop it in the WhatsApp so that we can do a live class on it. Thank you.